Have you ever heard the phrase, the empire on which the sun never sets? Well, long before the British claimed it, that title belonged to one man, Charles V. Imagine a ruler whose lands stretched from Spain to Germany, from the Netherlands to Italy, and across the vast, newly discovered Americas. This wasn't just a king. He was an emperor, a Holy Roman Emperor who presided over a truly global empire. How did one person accumulate so much power? And what was it like to hold the fate of continents in your hands? Today, we're diving into the incredible story of Charles V, the man who arguably came closer than anyone to ruling the world. So, how does someone become the most powerful man on earth? For Charles, it was all about family. He was a Habsburg, a dynasty that mastered the art of marrying well. His family tree is a who's who of European royalty. From his father, Philip the Handsome, he inherited the Netherlands and the Free County of Burgundy. When his maternal grandfather, Ferdinand of Aragon, passed away, he gained the crowns of Spain, Naples, Sicily, and Sardinia, not to mention Spain's burgeoning empire in the Americas. Then, from his paternal grandfather, Holy Roman Emperor Maximilian I, he inherited the Habsburg lands in Austria. It was an inheritance of staggering proportions, a lottery win of kingdoms. But inheriting all this land was one thing, holding it was another. Charles wasn't just handed these territories on a silver platter. At just 19 years old, he had to secure the most prestigious title of all, Holy Roman Emperor. This wasn't a hereditary title. It was an election, and he had a major rival in King Francis I of France. What followed was one of history's most expensive political campaigns. Charles, backed by the immense wealth of the Fugger banking family, essentially bought the votes of the prince-electors. In 1519, he was crowned, solidifying his position as the undisputed leader of Christendom. This victory, however, made his rivalry with Francis I of France personal and would define European politics for decades to come. With the crown secured, Charles now faced the monumental task of governing an empire that was more a collection of disparate territories than a unified state. Each region had its own laws, customs, and languages. He was constantly on the move, a perpetual traveler crisscrossing Europe to put out fires, negotiate with local nobles, and rally support. His travels were legendary. He spent almost a quarter of his reign just traveling from one part of his empire to another. Imagine trying to manage Spain while you're in Germany, or dealing with an uprising in the Netherlands from a palace in Madrid. It was a constant balancing act, a testament to his incredible energy and administrative skill. He relied on a network of regents, often trusted family members like his Aunt Margaret of Austria and his sister Mary of Hungary, to manage territories in his absence. While Charles was busy juggling his European domains, a whole new world was unfolding across the Atlantic. Under his reign, the Spanish conquest of the Americas went into overdrive. Hernan Cortes toppled the Aztec Empire, and Francisco Pizarro conquered the Incas in Peru. These conquests brought unimaginable wealth into the Spanish treasury, mostly in the form of gold and silver. This American silver funded Charles's European wars and propped up his vast empire. But this expansion had a dark side. The immense suffering inflicted upon the indigenous populations of the Americas raised profound moral and ethical questions. Even Charles himself was troubled by the reports of brutality. He passed the new laws in 1542 to protect native peoples. But enforcing them from thousands of miles away against the greed of the conquistadors proved nearly impossible. His empire was global, but so were its problems. Back in Europe, Charles saw himself as the chief defender of the Catholic faith. His timing couldn't have been worse. Just as he was consolidating his power, a German monk named Martin Luther nailed his 95 Theses to a church door, igniting the Protestant Reformation. What started as a theological dispute quickly became a political firestorm that tore through Charles's German lands. He tried to stamp it out, famously confronting Luther at the Diet of Worms in 1521. But the movement had too much momentum. German princes, eager to assert their independence from the emperor, embraced Lutheranism. This led to decades of religious conflict, draining Charles's resources and distracting him from other threats. It was a battle for the soul of Europe, and it was happening right in his backyard. As if a religious revolution wasn't enough, Charles had another formidable enemy to the east. The Ottoman Empire, led by the equally ambitious Suleiman the Magnificent. These two titans of the 16th century were locked in a struggle for control of the Mediterranean and southeastern Europe. The Ottomans besieged Vienna in 1529, the very doorstep of Charles's Austrian lands, and their fleets, along with Barbary pirates, terrorized Spanish and Italian coasts. Charles led campaigns against them, even capturing Tunis in a major victory in 1535. But the Ottoman threat was constant and relentless. It was a second front in a multi-front war that stretched his military and financial resources to the absolute limit. He was fighting for his empire's survival against enemies on all sides. The sheer pressure of ruling such a vast and troubled empire eventually took its toll. After decades of constant warfare, travel, and political maneuvering, Charles was exhausted. He was plagued by gout, a painful condition that often left him incapacitated. In a stunning and unprecedented move, he decided he'd had enough. Beginning in 1555, he began to abdicate his many titles. He handed his beloved Spanish Empire and the Netherlands to his son, Philip II, and the Holy Roman Empire to his brother, Ferdinand. He had tried to hold the world together, but he recognized that the dream of a single, unified Christian empire was no longer possible. He retired to a monastery in Uzes, Spain, trading his crowns and palaces for a life of quiet contemplation. So, what is the legacy of Charles V? He was the last emperor to pursue the medieval dream of a universal monarchy, but he reigned over the birth of the modern world. His empire connected continents, creating the first truly global trade networks. The silver from the Americas fueled the European economy, while the challenges of the Reformation and the rise of nation-states redrew the political map forever. The Habsburg dynasty, which he so carefully nurtured, would continue to shape European affairs for centuries. His reign was a paradox, a story of immense power and profound failure, of global ambition and deep personal piety. He ruled an empire without boundaries, but was ultimately bound by the limits of human endurance. Charles V's story is a powerful reminder of how ambition, faith, and circumstance can converge to create a figure of legendary proportions. He was a man of his time, yet his impact transcends it, leaving an indelible mark on the world we live in today. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through the age of Charles V. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next historical deep dive. See you in the next video.